Imagine being one of the most powerful politicians in Britain, feared, respected, untouchable, and then, every morning, finding a mysterious letter on your desk, with no sender, no fingerprints, and words that seem to pierce your very soul. Letters that predict your nightmares. Letters that speak in a language you never learned, yet somehow understand. Until one night, in the middle of a foreign land, you come face to face with a figure dressed in white, who vanishes before your eyes. That's when the horror begins. That's when your entire life and your beliefs are shattered. This is the true story of a man who thought he had everything until Allah called him. Rain pelted down in sheets, drumming against the black-tinted windows of the motorcade like 1,000 drumming fists. The city of Edinburgh had surrendered to a dark, stormy night. Lightning cracked the sky open like a celestial scream, briefly illuminating the face of the man sitting at the back seat, cold, tired, and profoundly haunted. He was Minister Charles Redgrave, one of the most powerful and controversial political figures in Britain. A man shaped by ambition, seasoned by deception, and scarred by the cost of power. He had been a proud atheist all his life, scoffing at religion in Parliament and on public platforms. His ideologies were firm, logic reigned supreme, and faith was for the weak. But that was before the letters began. It started with a simple envelope, no stamp, no sender. Only his name, written in elegant Arabic calligraphy, though he could not recognize it at the time. Inside, a single verse, printed in fine gold ink, Allah guides whom he wills. He had laughed at first, tossed it into the fire, but the next day, another came. This time, it was a verse from Surah Al-Baqarah. In their hearts is a disease, and Allah increases their disease. Again, in Arabic, and yet something within him trembled, as though the words vibrated against his soul. By the end of the week, the letters were arriving daily. No one could explain how they got past security. The camera showed nothing, the guards saw no one. Yet every morning, a new envelope would sit on his mahogany desk, pristine, untouched, almost glowing. The verses began affecting his sleep. He began hearing whispers at night, and strange dreams invaded his consciousness. Desert lands, a man in white, a voice calling out, Asterisk Abdullah. He dismissed it all as psychological fatigue, but it worsened. It was during a diplomatic visit to Istanbul that everything changed. Charles was invited to an event at the historic Sultan Ahmed Mosque, the Blue Mosque. He didn't want to go. It was a symbolic gesture, a box to tick, nothing more. But when he stepped inside, something odd happened. As his shoes came off and his feet touched the cool marble, his chest constricted. Not with fear, but with something heavier, deeper, as if the centuries of prayers, tears, and hopes embedded in the mosque walls were flooding into him. He stood there, rooted, his eyes scanning the blue-tiled dome. And then he saw the man, tall, radiant, wrapped in a white thob, standing near the mirror. He didn't move. His eyes locked with Charles's, and in that instant, Charles felt everything inside him collapse. Guilt, pride, sorrow, confusion, it all melted into one. The man raised a hand, not in greeting, but in a gesture that said, Asterisk, you know me. Charles stumbled back. Sir, are you all right? His assistant asked. But the man in white had vanished. That night, he couldn't sleep. He felt watched, followed, Wade. Shadows moved in the corners of the room. At 3:33 a.m., he woke up choking, gasping for breath, as if invisible hands were around his neck. A verse echoed in his ears. Then which of the favors of your Lord will you deny? He checked the hotel room Quran, untouched, yet the verse was highlighted. Enough, he whispered to himself. He returned to London, and for days he stayed away from people. The media said he was recovering from illness. The truth was, he was unraveling. His childhood came back to him. The abusive father, the crying mother, the nights he prayed alone, not knowing to whom. The letters continued, and then came the scream. It was a Friday night. He was home alone, reading documents. The power cut. Silence engulfed the mansion. From a mirror above the fireplace, a scream pierced through, not loud, but shrill, like a banshee whispering. His reflection was not his own. The eyes were black, hollow, and the mouth was open in an endless scream. He collapsed. When he awoke, he was on the floor, soaked in sweat. A piece of paper lay beside him. There is no God but Allah, and Muhammad is his messenger. His fingers trembled. He needed answers. He needed peace. Charles disappeared for 3 weeks. No one knew where he went. The media speculated everything from a secret affair to a stroke. He had gone to Morocco, to a village near the Sahara, guided by an old friend, a former intelligence officer who had accepted Islam years ago and lived in spiritual seclusion. There, Charles fasted for the first time. He read the Quran with English translation. He listened to the stories of the prophets, the wisdom of the Sahaba, and the weight of the hereafter. He learned, if this story touched your heart, don't just scroll away. Share it with someone who needs to know that no one is beyond Allah's mercy. Subscribe to Deeninminute for more real, life-changing stories that awaken the soul and strengthen the heart. Because guidance can come to anyone, even you.